Good morning, dear students of 11th class. Hope you all are well. You are most welcome to my online class once again. Dear students, you know that we are talking about right form of verbs under our English second paper. You know, you have two papers, English first paper and second paper, and we are talking about English second paper. The topic right form of verbs has been taken from English second paper, and in our previous class we were discussing where to use the ing form of verbs, you know, and we found that three types of verbs take ing form, and when they take ing they are divided into three groups. That is, we use ing in the case of continuous form of verb, number one. Number two, we also use ing form in the case of present participle, and finally we also use ing in the case of gerund. Anyway, we learned something about all these things, and we left in the point that the differences were finally at the end of the class. We were discussing the basic differences between gerund and present participle, and we found that both present participle and gerund derive from or come from or originated from verb. Both gerund and present participle, they originate from, they come from, they derive from verb, but they are, and they also end in ing. So these are their similarities. That is, both present participle and gerund, their origin is same. That is, the origin of both the gerund and the verb, the present participle, the origin is same, that is verb, and they also end in ing. That is, here is also similarity between present participle and gerund. Now, where is the difference? The difference is that though both gerund and present participle derive from or come from verb, but whereas present participle acts as an adjective, gerund acts as a noun. So gerund can be called an ing noun, and today I have selected the topic use of gerund. This is very important. If you have the correct idea about the appropriate use of gerund, then you will be benefited in different cases. So we have already learned, and let me repeat, what is gerund? A gerund derives from, a gerund originates from, a gerund comes from verb. It ends in ing, but it acts like a noun. So on the one hand, it acts like a verb, like its origin, and on the other hand, it's like a noun. That is, a gerund simultaneously acts like a verb and a noun. There are some verbs. There are some verbs and phrases after which we are to gerund always. I have written some verbs and phrases here. These verbs and phrases, and there are many other verbs and phrases, some other verbs and phrases like this, these are always followed by gerund. That is, after these verbs and phrases, we have to use gerund always, all the times. That is, gerund can be the direct object of these verbs and phrases. So what I have written here, these are the verbs and the phrases which always take gerund after them. That is, gerund can sometimes be the direct object of these verbs and phrases. I hope this is clear to you. What I am trying to explain? I mean that there are some words and phrases of which I have written, some of them. There are some words and phrases which always follow gerund. That is, after these words and phrases, and there are also some other words and phrases like this which always follow gerund. That is, gerunds can be the direct object of some words, some verbs and phrases like this. Let me read out what I have written here on the board. Start. Not only start, after start, gerund is always used. When the question of verbs comes after start, not only start and after all its synonyms. What are the synonyms of start? There are many other words which mean start. For example, start, begin, introduce, initiate, commence, etc. So, the verbs which mean start or stop, all the verbs may be the synonyms of start or may be the synonyms of stop, finish, conclude, or verbs giving the meaning of finish, end, etc. So, all the verbs and sometimes phrases which have the meanings of start something or stop something. These types of verbs always take gerund. So, after start, we have to use gerund, stop, finish, enjoy. You know all these meanings, the meanings of these words, I am sure. These are the very familiar words to you. Admit, avoid, consider, deny, practice, suggest, mind, remember, object, advise, with a view to, with a view to. This may be a phrase, of course, this is a phrase. I am sorry that I have written some words in the middle of the phrase. For example, what should have been put here, of course. Anyway, what is another word, and with a view to, this is a phrase, look forward to, phrase, you know, devoted to, phrase, addicted to, phrase, habituated to, phrase means in the habit of, accustomed to, phrase, or feel like. This is a very interesting phrase, prefer to, can or could, can or could not help, cannot help or could not help, and then it is no use or it is no good plus main verb plus ing, that is gerund. So, after all these verbs and phrases, we have to use main verb plus ing, that is verb plus ing. And ing is always used after the base form of main verbs, you know. And when we use ing after the base form of main verbs, it may be of three types. That is, you are using ing after verb, but it becomes three types. When we use ing after verbs, it may be continuous form of verb, it may be present participle form of verb, it may be gerund. So, we actually get three kinds of ing form in English grammar, that is a gerund, a participle, or a continuous form. So, here you can easily remember, just I believe that if you even forget each and everything, just try to remember all these words and phrases. These are the more common words and phrases, because there are some other words and phrases like this, but these are the more common ones. So, try to just remember these words and just keep all these words and phrases in your mind. Just remember one thing, that after these verbs and after these phrases, we have to use gerund, that is main verb plus ing. So, gerunds can be the direct object after all these verbs and phrases. This is my message today. Dear students, let me explain through examples. For example, I am writing examples here. Let me write examples here, just examples. start writing. This is start. This is our start writing. That is after start we have to use gerund. This is gerund. As we have already said, after the start we have to use gerund. This is gerund. The origin of this writing is right, which is above, and it ends in ing, but it acts like a noun because it is in the place of the object, and only a noun or a pronoun can be object. So this is a gerund because it has been used in the place of object. This writing derives from the verb write, and it also ends in ing, and it acts as a noun. That is why it is a gerund. So gerund has to fulfill three conditions to be gerund. Number one, the word should be originated from verb. Number two, it should be ended in ing. And number three, it should act as a noun. And this writing has fulfilled all these three conditions because writing derived from write, the verb, it ends in ing, and it acts like a noun because it is in the place of the object. So this is a gerund. Start writing, and then stop writing. Very common sentences, utterances in our exam hall. Stop writing, you know, writing. After the stop, you have to use ing, or stop running, start reading, stop reading, stop running, stop chattering, you know, stop making noise. So after the start and stop, we have to use gerund. And then let me proceed. Let me give some other examples. Start, stop, enjoy, then avoid. Okay, taking another example. Just giving a she always avoids answering her phone, her call, not phone, phone call. Okay, phone call. She always avoids, notice here, this is avoids, that is this avoid, answering, I am sorry, answering, we should use, yes, if we use here answer, this is wrong, because after avoid, we have to use ing or gerund, this is gerund. So answering her phone call. That means she usually not receives the phone call, especially most probably the unknown caller. Anyway, so answering, notice here, avoid. What do you mean? As we have already mentioned, after all these words and phrases, we have to use gerund. Here, avoid. I have taken avoid from here. And after avoid, I am using gerund, answering. If you use avoid answer or avoid answered or something like this, this is wrong, because after avoid, we have to use the gerund, as we have used gerund here. And then let me give another example. The effic. The effic is worth reading. The effic is worth reading. Here is worth. You know, where I have got this worth, this is the worth. And reading, here is reading. That is, I have used ing. after worth, because we have to use ing or gerund after worth. Worth means the novel is worth reading. What does it mean? The epic is worth reading. What is an epic? Epic means a kind of long narrative poem. Epic, a kind of long narrative poem written in elevated style, in which a national hero, for the collective interest of his nation, if he falls, the whole nation falls. If he wins, the whole nation wins. So, epic is a kind of a long narrative poem written in elevated style, in which a national hero fights for the collective interest of his nation. If he falls, the whole nation, if he defeats, the whole nation defeats. His defeat is the defeat of the whole nation, his victory is the victory of the whole nation. Epic means Mahakabya, is worth reading. Worth reading, worth means useful. Worth means some quality that makes something useful or beneficial or valuable. Worth reading means it deserves reading. That is, you can, just I am recommending, you can read the epic. It is interesting, it is useful for you. Worth reading. So, worth, here worth, after what we have used reading, that is ing, that is, this is gerund, because this is the direct object of worth. Answering, this is the direct object of avoid. Start writing, this is the direct object of start. Writing, stop writing, this is the direct object of stop. So, we are trying to explain here that some gerunds become the direct object of some words, some verbs and phrases like this. Then, let me give some other examples. For example, feel like, this is very interesting. Feel like, let me write down here by using feel like or felt like. The same rule is also applicable in the case of the past form of these verbs and phrases. Not only in the case of the present form, you have to use the direct objects gerund as the direct objects, but you can also use the direct object of the ing form noun after the past form or past participle form of these verbs and the phrases. You should remember this. It means feel like, after feel like we have to use the gerund, that is the ing noun, but after felt like, that is the past form of feel, you can also use the same rule, that is the direct object, gerund as the direct object. Anyway, feel like, let me give the example. She felt like crying. Crying, you know, ing, felt like, the past form, as I have just said. She felt like crying. Crying, after feel like or felt like, we have to use the ing form. She felt like crying. Very interesting. By using this phrase, you can express the powerful feelings of your minds. Very interesting and powerful phrase, I believe. What does it mean? She felt like crying. Felt like means she has a desire for. She would like to cry. She wants to cry. She chooses to cry. Felt like means choose, has a desire for, has a tendency for, has a mind for. She wants to cry. Or just why only cry? She felt like smiling, felt like, notice, she felt like smiling. What does it mean? She wants to smile. She would like to smile. She has a desire for a smile. Or tar hashi paচ্ছে, tar kanna paচ্ছে. This is the expression. So when you want to express this type of things, that is hashi paচ্ছে, kanna paচ্ছে, bumi asছে, etc., then you have to use feel like in this way. But don't forget that after feel like or felt like, the first form of feel like, you have to use the ing form, that is the gerund as the direct object of that verb or the phrase. This is the fact here. And then let me give another example. Cannot or could not help. We could not help scolding him. That is could not help. Scolding. Notice here. We could not help scolding. ing. After cannot or could not help, we have to use the gerund. That is, I have used here scolding. If you use we could not help scold him. What is scold? Scold means to rebuke, to, or should I say, take on to task. To rebuke, you know, rebuke, R-E-B-U-K-E, rebuke, or to take on to task. We could not help scolding him, scolding. Cannot help, could not help. Here help doesn't mean to assist. But this is a total phrase, not something. Don't consider help as something isolated here, but this is a whole phrase, and phrase should always consider together as a whole, not partly, separately. So, could not help means we could not help scolding him. It means that we could not prevent ourselves from scolding him. It was uncontrollable for us to scold him. That is, we could not control ourselves but scold him. That is, we had to scold him. We were compelled, obligated to scold him. Could not help. Kichu na kore thakte na para. We had to scold him. We could not control ourselves but scold him. Okay, so we could not help scolding him. And in this way, by using this phrase, you can use lot of powerful sentences. If you can understand the use of this phrase. And then let me give another examples. Emily is devoted to reading the Bible every morning. Another example. Notice here. Emily is devoted to. Where have I got this devoted to? Devoted to is, where is devoted to? This is devoted to, right? Emily is a Christian girl. Suppose she is devoted to reading the Bible. Devoted to. After devoted to, you have to use gerund, and that is why I have used reading. That is the ing form. If you use here, Emily is devoted to read the Bible every morning, this is wrong. You have to use gerund after devoted to. Devoted to means physically or psychologically, I am sorry, devoted to means committed to, consecrated to, adhered to something, engaged in something good, dedicated to, and addicted to. Let me give another example. She is addicted to drinking. She is addicted to here drinking. This is the gerund and here is the addicted. I got addicted here. Addicted to. After addicted to, we have to use the gerund ing. So, addicted to. Addicted to means obsessed or absorbed in something bad. That is physically or psychologically dependent on something which the addicted person can't avoid. This is very bad. So, engaged in bad thing, obsessed in bad thing, absorbed in something bad is called addicted to. And after addicted to, we have used gerund. So, dear students, let us stop here today. After all these, just remember all these words and phrases, and just one thing, that after all these words and phrases, after these verbs and phrases, we have to use gerund. That is, some verbs and phrases like this are always followed by gerund. That is, gerund can be the direct objects of all these verbs and phrases. Thank you very much for joining my live session.